When you're looking for someone silly enough to retrieve your change from the wishing well, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
Casey.
And Jesse.
Right, and this week I hope to stutter a lot less than I did last week. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty well.
Yeah?
Yep, had a good visit with some friends and a family member from out of state, and
Cool.
kind of ran around like crazy with them. Glad for the downtime now. Turned one of them onto the podcast. Woohoo!
Nice.
Yay.
Visits with family are always interesting because I think for the first 6 hours you're like, man, it's really great to see you. We should do everything. Then after that it's just, man, it was really great to see you. When are you leaving?
Yes.
No, we didn't get to that point. We were just doing a lot of errands, and then just kind of like, you want to just do a night in? Yeah, let's just do board games and, kick back, relax. So that's what we did there last night. But my little sister went to the Taylor Swift concert and was just overjoyed out of her mind. We didn't go. The rest of us just went to go see Venom, actually.
Oh, cool. All right. Decent film or no?
Oh, yeah. I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I went with kind of low expectations because their take on it is really different, but it was a good different. It was a non-Spider-Man Venom,
Okay.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So the origins were interesting. You gotta love the casting. And then they give a hint to the next movie, and it will feature Carnage. I'm excited.
Okay.
Heard about that.
All right. Casey, what about you?
I finally found myself a used copy of Spider-Man for $35, so I put that bad boy on for the weekend.
You paid
time
$35
well
for the
spent.
2002 film or what?
The dad jokes have begun. No,
I'm making sure,
there's
dude.
more
I don't know
Spider-Man.
how you deal with money, so I'm just making sure here.
No, I was using the tried and true reliable method of Facebook Market, and I met somebody who had a copy of the PS4 Spider-Man without a case for $35. So it's like score.
Okay.
So that's what I've been rocking. Just working and playing Champions Online. Still a lot.
Okay. Jesse, what about you?
Right now I am running anxious.
Okay, that sounds like a very interesting operating system, but not one I'm familiar with.
I got the download for that.
Oh, please don't shit at. No, I am very anxious because Comic-Con, I'm enrolled in the pre-reg sales for San Diego Comic-Con this year.
Yeah.
And I'm debating whether I want to go or not because I have not fully recovered financially from the last time I went.
I know. I know. I had the same debate, man. We were just talking about that before the show, that I had almost convinced myself just to save money for no general reason and just try and lower the stress in my summer. But then I remember that this upcoming in 2019 is San Diego Comic-Con's 50th convention.
And that is not helping me.
I know. I realize that. That's the thing that I told my wife when she said, I may not go. Yeah, I understand that, but it's the 50th, so I got to go. Is it? Shit, I have to go.
It sounds like a lot of effort to get on.
It's actually not that much considering the system that we have put together. It's more or less just sitting and waiting. The system that Jesse and I work with, and it's pretty much a guarantee that you're going to get a pretty good badge. But, What?
Good luck.
Thanks. Myself, Saturday started out pretty quiet. I thought anyway. I just did some errands, did some shopping. Was up way too early because a family dog decided at 6 a.m. she needed attention. So it was just one of those things. But in the early evening, around 7 o'clock, I got a sudden text from Donovan Troy. For those that don't know, he is my friend that is a wrestling announcer and booking agent. And he's from Northern California. I'm in Southern. Turns out he's in Southern on a last-minute gig. So he just said, do you want to grab dinner and catch up? And I said, sure, I can do that. Let me put on some shoes. So I went out there, waited till his show was over. We went to a Mexican restaurant because he was with another wrestler named Rick Luxury. And every time Rick comes to Southern California, he wants like tacos, like a fiend. So he went out to a Mexican restaurant, and Donovan goes out and he comes back and he said, I was in the bathroom and I was thinking about you. And I looked up and said, I have no idea how to take that statement. And he says, I think we need to get you back in the ring. And I said, why is it every time I go out to dinner with you, you threaten me? I don't understand this. And so, last time it took him 22 hours to get yeses from everybody. This time it took him less than 14. January 5th, I think it is, I have to wrestle again. In a singles match this time.
Oh, so who against who? Or is that secret?
It's Phoenix Wright again. It's he and I, no safety net this time. It's going to be him versus me.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, I thought
that
I was
seems like kind of a mismatch.
What are you talking about?
You are in a different weight category than he is.
Yeah, but he can be the Daniel Bryan to my Diesel. He can do it. Frack. But, that was the second thing that happened that day that was kind of weird. The first part was I went out to my local comic book shop, Collector's Paradise, on Winnetka, and they had a release party for the comic book history of professional wrestling.
Really?
Huh.
Yeah, a writer and artist decided to talk about, like, the major events in professional wrestling in the form of this big graphic novel. The dang thing looks like it's about 130, 150 pages.
Ooh.
And they even made likenesses of people. They have a bibliography in the back where they talk about certain wrestlers. So I went out, and the signing was free. All you had to do was buy the graphic novel. So I did that, and I took my giant book to get signatures in that as well. But sitting in between them is a professional wrestler named Christopher Daniels.
I'm not familiar with that name.
He's from Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling. He's also known as the Fallen Angel.
Not ringing a bell.
Yep.
He was a very nice guy. He sat in between. He brought a few comic books he had himself written for people to take a look at, and he signed the dang thing as well. So I've got 3 different signatures with, all made out to me with them just being super nice. The artist from the graphic novel even decided to scrawl the face of the Macho Man in my giant book.
Awesome.
Macho Man.
So it was a strange day going out and meeting a professional wrestler I didn't expect to meet, then finding out I have to be one again. And then there was Sunday. No, Sunday was much more mundane, thankfully. I was up late because I was talking to Donovan, but I was up so late I didn't feel like going to the gym all day, but the more I thought about it, I'm just like, I gotta get in the ring. I gotta go back to the gym. So I dragged my dead ass out on Sunday and did that anyway. The subject of this week is Raven, Daughter of Darkness, 1-6 by DC Comics. It is the 2017... I guess 12 issues is a miniseries now, but we'll get to that after the news of the week, and I apologize if it seems like we're going to buzz through some things, but New York Comic Con happened this past weekend, and as it turns out, they have about as many announcements and things happening as San Diego does these days.
Oh, God, yeah, I was cranking those things out on my Facebook page over the weekend.
So we will get started with Marvel comic news. It's where we talk about all the intellectual properties owned by the House of Mouse and what they're doing in comic books now and in the upcoming months. And first up has to do with Spider-Geddon. Issue 0 was released this past week, which still wasn't quite the event itself, but it was a big primer as to what's coming up. And during New York Comic Con, the publisher revealed that Spider-Geddon is not going to focus on Peter Parker.
Who's it going to focus on?
According to editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, C.B. Cebulski, quote, "To date, most Spider-Man events that we've seen have been surrounding the life and times of Peter Parker. But now Peter's taken a back seat, and Miles has taken front and center on this. Miles Morales, who is new to the Marvel Universe, the new teen Spider-Man, the Kid Arachnid, so to speak, is going to be at the front and center of this first big Spider-Man event," unquote.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was a bad thing, but Cebulski is right. This is new territory. The previous times all these General Spider-Men have gotten together, the 616 Peter Parker has been the one leading the charge, and in this case, he won't be.
Yeah, I wonder why the reason is for that. I mean, are they going to find a way to exclude him somehow? I mean, this kind of seems like something up his alley.
I don't know about exclude. I would just say that this is one of the more obvious ways to change the formula. I mean, Spider-Geddon is going to be very similar to the last Spider event. I don't even remember what it was called at this point. The last time the Inheritors came to harass everybody.
That is a good question, and I think I have an answer.
It was Spider something. It wasn't like Spider-Apocalypse or anything quite that.
Something into the Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse. It was just
like
Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
But the Spider-Verse event, Peter Parker led it, and of course when you're dealing with Spider-Man's alternative selves, there's all kinds of different characters that have the Spider mantle in their universes, but for the most part it's different versions of Peter Parker.
Including the Spider-Man from the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the new one involves that, Spider-Geddon anyway. He didn't exist prior. But now you now you have this whole crew being led by Miles Morales, who, as far as spider totem wearers go, he's a bit of an outlier. There's not a whole lot out there like him.
I gotta say, this Spider-Geddon thing makes me a little nervous because they have an offshoot 3-part issue that kind of deals with tertiary, or even maybe to some readers' viewpoints, superfluous spider characters like Kane, Spider-Woman, and I think like one of the randos. I'm hoping they don't use that opportunity to kill off Kane to make it convenient to only have one Scarlet Spider, and also, kill off Spider-Woman, which, goddamn, it seems like Marvel has been wanting to do that since 1980.
Well, I put the brakes on those fears only because they are introducing 2 brand new characters in there, and usually brand new characters you've never heard of before are the red shirts in these events.
Or they could wipe the whole team, Alpha Flight style.
I seriously doubt that. Half the characters in that book have their own dedicated fan bases. They're very loud these days.
I guess I hope, man, because, man, Spider-Woman is my number 2 favorite hero of all time.
Well, Spider-Man, though, is not getting completely ignored when it comes to Marvel's plans. They are going to start what they call the most local Peter Parker ever with the new series Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man launching in 2019. The art is by Juan Cabal, who has worked on All New Wolverine and X-23. The series is going to be written by Tom Taylor, the writer of DC's Injustice and Marvel's X-Men Red series.
That's a good artist right there.
It's going to revolve around Peter Parker as he's faced with the age-old problem of having to balance his superhero life with his personal one, which is kind of interesting because that's usually the story of every Spider-Man book.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that artist actually draws humor very well.
Yeah.
Really good on facial expressions.
Well, from what we can extrapolate from the announcements is this is not going to be Peter Parker in any of his world-spanning or even like I guess even city-threatening type events. This is going to be him working down and dirty in the neighborhoods.
I like that.
Marvel has also announced that in 2019 they are relaunching Marvel Comics Presents, their anthology series.
Oh, well, that's news.
The anthology is going to feature 3 separate stories, and they're going to star, in turn, Wolverine, Captain America, and Namor, the Submariner.
That sounds almost Invader-ish.
Maybe, but Wolverine's tale is going to take place in the 1940s. Captain America's story will be the present day, and Namor is going to star in an untold story featuring an atom bomb, of all things.
Huh.
Weird.
Still getting that Invaders vibe.
List of creators is going to include Charles Soule, Greg Pak, Ann Nocenti, Tom Coker, and Paulo Siqueira. The cover, not the comic itself, but the cover is going to have a brand new image by Art Adams.
Oh, I love Art Adams. I wish he would do full issues.
Well, this anthology series hasn't been heard of since 1995, with the exception of 1 year it was brought back from 2007 to 2008. Usually Marvel uses this book to show off their C-listers and to try to elevate certain characters like they did with Hawkeye and Moon Knight way back in the day. In this case, though, as you can hear, it's going to star 3 of their relatively feature players.
Yeah, well, I mean, Marvel Comics Presents was also the platform they used to finally explain Logan's origin for the very first time.
Yeah. Yeah, those books are worth something, and, man, that's only worth something, I guess you could say, because of those particular 8 pages out of the 22 that told other stories.
Yeah.
I still remember picking up those issues and reading about Cold Blood, and I think I'm one of 3 people who remembers that character.
Oh, Cold Blood 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's number 2. Also announced at New York Comic Con was the next event to beset the Avengers. Do you remember the middle of last year they had their No Surrender event where they took 3 or 4 teams of Avengers and honed it down to 1?
Yeah.
It was released weekly between 3 or 4 different series. CB Cebulski announced on Saturday at New York Comic Con during the Next Big Thing panel that they will have another weekly event with the Avengers that they're calling Avengers No Road Home. It's being done.
What that's all about.
Well, it's being done by Mark Waid, Jim Zub, Al Ewing, Paco Medina, and Sean Izake. That's a pretty good crew of creators right there.
It is.
According to Zub, quote, "We're telling the biggest, craziest Avengers story we can again." Unquote. He would not go into details as to what the story is about, but it was also revealed during that week that the Avengers will have a brand new member from space to help them in this event. Although
You know what would make my day? Rom. Just
No.
out of fucking nowhere.
Marvel does not own ROM, nor can they.
I know, that's why it would be the ultimate stunt casting.
But you're in the right part of the alphabet. Joining the Avengers for No Road Home will be Rocket Raccoon.
Nice.
According to writer Al Ewing, quote, quite a while ago now, Mark, Jim, and I were trapped in a room and beaten with a pole.
What? That was not where I expected the conversation to go.
This is basically how he joked No Road Home came to be. He basically said that Marvel locked the three of them in a room and started whacking them until they came out with a pretty good story. It was also revealed during that conversation that not only will Rocket join the Avengers, but a tertiary character from No Surrender is returning, and that's Voyager, the daughter of the Grandmaster.
I was wondering when she was going to pop up again.
Yep. So there's no definitive story details as of yet. Also, Marvel has teased the logo of an upcoming event they've been talking about for almost literally a year now, and that's the War of the Realms from the Thor books. The ten realms in their Norse mythology are going to come to blows finally. They didn't reveal much other than the creative team and the logo. It's being written by Jason Aaron. It's also being worked on by Russell Dodderman and Matthew Wilson. They've kept everything else under wraps, and I don't know what to expect from War of the Realms other than carnage that I cannot contemplate.
And female Thor returning.
I hope so, but I don't know.
She's on the cover.
I haven't seen a cover for War of the Realms yet.
Haven't? Oh.
No.
New York Comic Con shot out a promotion poster, if not that being the cover. And at the forefront of this, I guess, miasma of faces and stuff was Jane Foster Thor.
I saw an image that was released with it, but it was the same kind of double-page spread that was seen in, I don't remember where. It was somewhere in the middle of the Mighty Thor run with Jane Foster that included Loki with an Infinity Gauntlet and the Mangog in the background before it killed her, and Thor with his new golden arm.
Oh, I didn't see that. To be honest with you, I was kind of skimming through images to see what I was going to post, and I saw Jane Foster Thor. I was like, oh, hey, cool. Then I moved on.
Yeah, I think that was the same double-page spread, so I haven't heard that she's returning as of yet. One woman hero that Marvel has that is returning, though, in a new series of her own, is Natasha Romanoff. The Black Widow gets her own series starting again in January.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see how long that goes before they cancel it.
Well,
I'm not trying to be a cynic or anything. I just know Marvel.
Well, it's being written by a sister duo, Jen and Sylvia Soska. The art is by an artist that calls himself Flaviano. This is one of the first comic projects by the filmmakers of the Soska sisters. They previously worked on movies like American Mary and ABCs of Death 2. I'm still trying to figure out what necessarily it's about, but apparently, according to Jen Soska, the circumstances of Natasha Romanoff's death in the Secret Empire storyline, she's basically going to take that out on other people. The quote was, quote, "Our Natasha will be true to the Natasha we all love, but she is not in a good mood. You won't see her feeling bad for putting more red on her ledger. She enjoys what she does. She's damn good at it. She's fearless, she's lethal, she's unstoppable. She's the last person you want coming for you. Our Natasha isn't following anyone's rules, so she's completely unleashed," unquote. I'm not quite sure
We'll
how to
see.
take that statement in particular.
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like a lot of hype. I'm not buying it. I'll take a look at the series and see if there's something to it, but right now, I'm skeptical.
Marvel's teen series of the Champions is also getting a new #1 in January of 2019. It's going to be written still by Jim Zub, who's currently working on the series, and he's being joined by the artist of Wayward, Stephen Cummings. Zub has described this new version of the Champions as the Legion of Superheroes for Marvel, unquote. The cover that was released in the promo art during the panel did show the current core team of champions, plus about 3 or 4 other people who have been associated with the book but haven't been regular members. That includes the Patriot, the new Power Man, and Red Locust.
Yeah, those have all been characters that have popped up in the book, but they haven't taken memberships.
Yeah, when they described it as the Legion of Superheroes for Marvel, what I'm assuming that to mean is that there will be a core group of members, but there will be a ton of reservists that they can call in depending on the situation.
Or that the fact that they're always going to keep all the characters teenagers.
I seriously hope not. That's always very disappointing.
It's been that way since the book started so far.
Well, the book is only 2 years old. I would give it time.
Eh,
Besides which, Cyclops is gone.
he is, but that doesn't really matter. We got tons of Marvel teenage heroes.
I'm actually more curious why Sam Alexander is still in this team. He's not sporting his Nova helmet still.
Probably pulling a Banshee or a Protege.
Well, I don't know.
Remember them?
Well, I don't know because he was on Weird World and he was using Nova Force powers without the helmet.
To clarify, anybody listening, when I'm saying Banshee or Protege, way back in 1980, Banshee lost his powers, but remained with the X-Men in a non-powered capacity. This also happened again in the New Mutants, or was it? I don't remember what it was called. It was one of the New Mutants where a mutant named Protege lost his powers, but his powers were to retain knowledge, and he still had the knowledge he'd already taken.
That wasn't.
So he was still with the team.
That wasn't New Mutants. That was New X-Men, and that
New
was
X-Men. I thought
that
I
was
screwed up
M-Day.
the title, but you know what I meant.
The Guardians of the Galaxy, we do not know who the full roster is going into the new book that's launching in 2019, but Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw are working on it, and at New York Comic Con, they revealed the first of the new Guardians of the Galaxy. And his name is Frank Castle.
Oh, Cosmic Ghost Rider?
Yep. He's in the center of the cover, but the rest of the roster appears to be blacked out, and if I had to make a guess, there looks to be about, I would have to say, a dozen characters on this potential cover.
Hey, I haven't seen that image. Share it with me.
Okay, I would guess one of them is Groot. There's a very tall figure in the back that's lacking in detail, but the head is very boxy. Still, though, that's only a guess.
If I had to go on a list of previous Guardians that I don't think have been getting the proper attention they deserve, I would include Bug on that list.
I seriously doubt he's in this one. I appreciated the character, but he's really kind of left field for most casual readers.
Well, so is Rocket.
Rocket was easier to understand, though, than Bug, considering his history in the microverse.
Oh, that's totally Groot.
Yeah, it is.
There's just so many heads and figures in here, it's a little hard to pull apart. I'd almost say the one on the far right, that appears to be the that appears to be the original Quasar.
Yeah, I'm going to go say Quasar. I bet you Starhawk is in here, too. That looks... You see that little point on top of that head? That really looks like a Kree.
Yeah, I was going to say that I don't think that point is Starhawk. That would be much bigger.
Yeah, that point is definitely a Kree. The Starhawk I'm talking about is on the far left. Next to him, that hairstyle, maybe Nikki?
I do not know. I'm not up in the history of the Guardians for the most part. According to Donny Cates, quote, Jeff and I always lean towards stories that are a little bit loud and in space. The stakes in action can be bigger than anywhere else. This was our chance to do things we've always wanted to do, to tear shit up. And of course, Cosmic Ghost Rider is on the team. How could he not be, unquote?
You're right, though. There's at least a dozen people on this cover. I don't know how they're going to pull that off.
Neither do I. I hazard to guess. I imagine there's at least 3 more people standing in front of the Cosmic Ghost Rider there, and there's just so much shadow here. I couldn't give you a good guess as to who any of the rest are.
Yeah, I think these people are stacked together like they're at a school picture or something like that.
Yeah. Also announced at New York Comic Con is another female Marvel character is getting her own new series again in January. Writer Kelly Thompson and artist Carmen Carnero are being brought together for a new Captain Marvel #1.
Yeah, I heard they're trying to change the pace. Instead of having her in like cosmic themes and space theme stuff, they're gonna have her in New York on Earth-based missions.
Yeah, it's going to follow a few different needs, including the fact that the character is being associated with the Avengers again. She needs to have more of an be more Earth-bound than she has been in prior stories.
Mm-hmm.
As well as the writer of this, Kelly Thompson, was very apt when she said, quote, you really want her to be accessible to new and younger audiences who are going to see the movie, fall in love, and want to seek out other Captain Marvel stories. But you really want to respect the fans who have loved the character for decades. I think there's a razor's edge there, unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think she's better off on Earth and away from that whole Alpha Flight thing that she was doing up in space. Those stories were not her best.
Yeah, I don't know if the retconning of her origin and life of Captain Marvel is going to play a big part, but according to a few other snippets here, James Rhodes is not being brought back as a love interest. Some character introduced in the Life of Captain Marvel mini may be brought into this series as well.
Yeah.
But that's a big may. We did find out in the recent weeks that the upcoming story by Charles Soule, who's decided to burn the ground behind him, basically, with the Death of Daredevil arc. During the Marvel True Believers panel at New York Comic Con, creative executive Ryan Penagos revealed that writer Jed MacKay and artist Danilo Bayruth will produce The Man Without Fear. It's going to be a weekly book centering around the aftermath of Daredevil's death. This is suggesting that the death of Matt Murdock may carry the same kind of weight as when Captain America and Wolverine died. This book is going to tell the story of how different people are dealing with Matt Murdock's apparent death.
Huh.
So it sounds like they are taking him off the board for an extended amount of time. The Death of Daredevil is supposed to begin October 17th, running from Daredevil 609 to 612. Then Man Without Fear will hit shelves in January. It's a bold choice considering how big the profile of the character is with the Netflix series and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
We shall see. It wouldn't be the first time they've killed a major character in their history. Unlike DC, they didn't bring him back immediately. If you've been a fan of podcasts, you might have come across a podcast that Marvel put out recently called Wolverine The Long Night. I said if. I didn't say it's absolute. The reason why I bring it up, though, is because Wolverine The Long Night's being adapted into comic books. Marvel's decided to bring the story forward. The writer is Benjamin Percy, who is also the writer behind the podcast. The artwork's being done by Marcio Takara, who recently worked on Captain Marvel and The Incredibles. According to a synopsis, the premise of the podcast centered around a string of serial murders in a remote Alaskan town, and Logan is the prime suspect. Federal agents investigating get uncomfortably close to uncovering Logan's mutant identity, forcing him to distance himself further from society while still meting out the justice he prefers to mete out. I don't know. When it comes to Wolverine stories, that's not outside the realm of the norm. He often gets hunted down by people who think he may have rendered someone limb from limb, often because he has before. Ed Brisson, one of the writers on Uncanny X-Men, decided to tease the future of the Uncanny X-Men series. The series is supposed to bring together a number of members of different teams, as well as be pretty much the only central X-Men team left standing. According to another writer in the series, Matthew Rosenberg, quote, "It's the culmination of a lot of what's been going on in the X-Men for a while. This is a threat that comes from very close to the X-Men, and it brings everyone together," unquote. And he still won't talk about who the roster of this series is. He said, quote, "There's a couple of people in the book you haven't seen too much of lately," unquote. And he just didn't get beyond that. Leah Williams from X-Men Black did talk about her one-shot on Emma Frost, and she said, quote, "I don't see Emma Frost as a villain. I think she's an anti-hero, but I would definitely put her more on the heroic side. Time and again, we've seen her do heroic things like mentoring Jean. She's grown so much and has an incredible backstory," unquote.
Yeah, I just got X-Men Black Magneto yesterday, but I haven't cracked it yet. Have you?
I read through it. It's not quite as divisive as you would think it is, but it definitely paints a stark reality that Magneto is going to start thinking. I don't want to say like he used to, but he's not going to behold himself to anyone's ethical or moral quandaries anymore. He's going to do things the way he sees fit. Period.
So, is this series, these X-Men Black issues, are these actually relevant, or is this just an opportunity for creators to write one-shots?
I think it's a bit of a few things. I think with Uncanny X-Men being restarted, this is their chance for Marvel to actually paint a picture as to where these characters currently stand, as well as introduce them to people who may be coming on to the new series, since number ones are great places for casuals to pick up new books. So I think they're taking the chance to say that this is how these characters are. What you've seen in the movies, you've seen, but this is not where these people are. Magneto, they definitely tried to paint the other side of the fence when they show how several characters whose actions he's impacted respond to his return, as a villain anyway. Including federal agents. Also, Uncanny X-Men will have an annual sometime in 2019, and that book is teasing the return of a long-missing X-Man. Group editor Jordan White teased the return of Cyclops. They called the solicits for it Cyclops, Dead or Alive.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't get a chance to read the solicit on it, but this will probably be their first step in getting him back, because that's inevitable.
Well, it's being done by Ed Brisson and Carlos Gomez, and Brisson is a very solid writer. He's the guy that's been doing Extermination recently,
Hmm.
and the cover features a lot of different versions of Cyclops. Uh, Cyclops, who some people may not know, was the first and longtime leader of the X-Men, and he's been offline since 2016's Death of X when he died from a disease. To explain the disease might take a little longer than you're comfortable with. But it's the second time in Cyclops' history that he's been technically dead, although the first one was it was a bit harder to quantify since he was absorbed by a villain so he could get access to his powers. But, it's comic books. Characters return from the dead all the time.
I'm thinking back to X-Men Black. When is X-Men Black Mystique coming out?
I don't remember if those... I think those books are being released weekly. All the solicits came out in the same month. So I think this month will be when all 5 issues of X-Men Black come out. If I remember correctly, I think Mystique is number 4.
Yeah, because I'm looking back at Weapon X number 23 and number 24, and she outright just flat disappears halfway through the book, and it's like no one even brings her up again. And I'm not really sure what happened there, so I'm wondering if maybe the X-Men Black issue is going to talk about it.
I don't know. They were very cagey as to what each issue actually entails, other than just fleshing out these particular villains or former villains or anti-heroes that the X-Men have in their orbit. Yeah, I think the only one that they even really talked about in any serious degree was Mojo, simply because they tried to make it clear that his realm of influence now is the internet instead of just television.
Oh boy.
Hey, it's a logical evolution for that particular type of character. I mean, the only way it could be more on the nose is if they say his new realm is social media.
You snapped it at all of them.
Yeah. If he was in control of Snapchat, that would explain so much. Also, there's been some clarification that came out during a conversation in New York Comic Con. Remember a few weeks ago, John Byrne started doing a new X-Men series based on his time on the book and where he would have continued things if he had creative control? That was called X-Men Elsewhen, and C.B. Cebulski had emailed him to discuss Elsewhen and Byrne's potential return to Marvel. Cebulski was at a panel Q&A at New York Comic Con, and he said, quote, "That was more of me being a fan and saying hello. We haven't really discussed anything formally. I just wanted to let John know the opportunity for discussion is open," unquote. I'm hoping he's just keeping things under wraps. I would like to see Byrne return to Marvel for some kind of short stint. Because I appreciate his art style.
Yeah. That would be nice. It just seems like no one's willing to really put down no one's willing to commit, is what I'm hearing.
Well, there's still the unknown beef that Byrne has with Marvel. I know he's got some kind of big argument with him, and I know neither side will talk about it. I would love to know the details, but if he hasn't told it by now, he's never going to.
Yeah.
And the only other piece of Marvel comic news I have was also announced at New York Comic Con, and that appears to be the future of the Uncanny X-Men in the form of the Age of X-Man. Nate Gray, the version of Cable from an alternative universe where he had no techno-organic virus and full access to his powers, appears to be more marauding and is going to try to forcibly save the world, whether they like it or not. Which sounds a bit like Avengers vs. X-Men, but a little more personal. And, by the way, the X-Men of Salvation were fully talked about, or not X-Men, the Horsemen of Salvation were discussed during the panel.
Yeah.
And it was revealed that the 4 are Angel, Blob, Omega Red, and Magneto.
Huh.
Really? That's Magneto?
That's Magneto with the purple robe and the beard.
Okay, I guess.
Hey, I didn't say it's a bad thing. I was surprised that the last one was Magneto. What can you say? That's a pretty formidable group of horsemen if they're all charged up and ready to fight.
It is. Holy crap.
So it's nice to have that mystery solved, though. That was bothering me for a couple weeks there.
Honestly, it was the beard. The beard just threw everyone off.
I don't think it was the beard that threw me. I think it was the staff. I was trying to think too literally around that staff. I should have just let that go and taken the obvious cues that were all over that image. And now we have DC comic news. We'll talk about the other major company in comic books and their characters and storylines now and in the near future. Tom King indicates that what's going on in Heroes in Crisis is major, but I wonder if he's aware that he's writing comic books. because according to him, the deaths that have happened in Heroes in Crisis are permanent. Now you can understand why I asked if he understands he's working on a comic book.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then he really needs to talk to the other editors and writers that spent all that time getting, and I'm going to say a spoiler, Wally West on the slab after spending so much goddamn time bringing him back.
Well, he wasn't the only one really that had a lot of growth since Rebirth that was aced there, because was it Roy Harper recently found out that Oliver Queen thinks that Roy's probably a better archer than he is.
Well, that's great and all, but Wally West is practically the keystone to Rebirth. I mean, they hadn't even fully investigated how he came back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't understand why they would. I don't understand that choice in writing. I really don't.
I don't know. It's become a standard, though, I think, in DC events that when they have a big world-spanning event that involves death, a Flash has to die.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, this choice. I'm not angry on I'm a fan, my character is dead way. I'm irritated because this just seems like an extremely poor writing choice.
I don't know about poor. I think that added to the shock of it, and as well as the emotion around the book when characters that are built up like that are suddenly killed. I mean, it happens in real life all the time. Sometimes people that are at the top of what's going on around them suddenly end up killed by accident. So I wasn't really sad that he died. I was just surprised. Well, surprised is the wrong word. Actually, they had been building for a few months in the comics that he was very likely to be one of the characters dying in this Heroes in Crisis story. Unfortunately, all the flags were set into place. He basically did everything but said that after his next adventure, he was going to go back home and marry his childhood sweetheart. Also, some interior art has recently been revealed at New York Comic Con of the Three Jokers mini, and I understand people are thrilled with this. It brings up a few more questions than I thought I would have when they revealed which three Jokers are going to be in this story. For those that don't know, early on in Rebirth, it was revealed to Batman via a cosmic item that the Joker isn't one person. There's been at least three people he's been dealing with that have been the Joker. And sorry?
No, I'm just curious. How, why, these typical questions.
Well, I think the Three Jokers is supposed to help explain that, but the reason why I have more questions is because it turns out all three Jokers that are going to be featured in this are from bygone eras of DC Comics.
Yeah.
You're going to have the original Joker, who came in way back in the 40s, really, with an old-fashioned tuxedo. You're going to have the 60s Joker, which is the image I think most people associate with the character.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have the Killing Joke Joker, the one with a wide brim and hat and the very dark purple suit with the yellow vest. This won't involve either of the more recent iterations of the Joker, including the ones that actually know who Bruce Wayne is. So I'm kind of curious why those versions of this character were not included in this story. You would think that'd be the story, is to find out how the Joker figured out that Bruce Wayne and Batman are one and the same.
Right.
So I really don't know what to say. They showed additional art of what Batman and Batgirl are going to look like, which further lends credence to the idea that this is going to be telling an older story. It's Batgirl with, it looks like a variation on her 80s, 90s outfit with the yellow interior on her capelet, and she's still wearing a cowl, not the domino mask combination she has today. So I have even more questions.
Questions. Too many questions. You want a shard? Sorry, I went Dark Crystal.
Well, I'm not trying to find a reason to hate it or anything, or give people reasons to hate it. I have some curiosities being a more casual reader of DC than a lot of others. Jeff Johns has also shared some new Shazam art, which really won't tell you much. It looks like Billy Bastion may have transformed in the middle of a school hallway by accident, and he has a very big grin on his face. I don't understand. But Jeff Johns did say during the panel, quote, "The cover kind of tells you the tone of the book. It's going to be a continuation of the first era of the book, and there will be a retelling of the origin with the Rock of Eternity," unquote. It sounds like Shazam's getting a complete retcon in this version of the story. Well, Johns was very open when he first started talking about this book that instead of trying to continue the story of Shazam, they're going to change it around and basically make this book a continuation of the original Fawcett Comics version of Captain Marvel.
What's that supposed to mean?
I'm guessing that means a lot of the characters from the first couple volumes of the book are going to show up in this modern iteration. He did say that two of Captain Marvel's, or I guess now Shazam's, longest-running enemies are going to be teaming up in the next in the next volume of comics.
Is that we're gonna get like
It was,
Captain Marvel Jr., Mary Marvel, and Uncle Marvel, and Tawny the Tiger, and
I don't
all
know.
those?
I don't know about Tawny the Tiger. I do know that in the first volume he will be rebuilding his family, but they're being rather cagey about what in particular that means.
Hmm.
So I wish I had more details to tell you, but I don't. I don't think the character's had a heavy feature since like the 52 book, the weekly one.
Yeah. Well, I know that Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel, at least their alter egos, are factoring into the Shazam movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still not sure if I'm looking forward to that or not. I haven't made a decision based on the trailers. I think I need to see a clip.
They need to show another trailer to confirm the kind of tone they're going with.
Mm-hmm. Brian Michael Bendis did announce during New York Comic Con that he's getting his own arm of DC Comics. They're calling it Wonder Comics. It's going to be a mini imprint that has a number of series, but it appears that the focus point is going to be a revival of the Young Justice series.
All right.
Okay.
Well, the proposed cover art even had a reunion of 4 very central characters when it comes to Young Justice. That included Tim Drake, Bart Allen, and Connor Kent.
Is this
Oh,
like the
that
classic
Young
Young
Justice.
Justice, or are we
that-
talking the series, the cartoon series?
I
No,
think we're
this
talking
is
about the old school comics.
yeah, this is more or less a restart of the older comics, and I don't know if it's their own continuity, being that this is a Wonder Comics solicitation underneath DC's umbrella. I don't know if this is a continuation of even the prior story now that all their timelines have been fused into one massive one. I do know that a couple of new characters were talked about, including Jenny Hex.
Jenny Hex.
Yep, she's going to be introduced in Bendis and Nick Darrington's Walmart Batman series. She's going to be a descendant of Jonah Hex, as well as another character who's going to be a Green Lantern hacker, somebody who hacked a Green Lantern ring to make it do what they want.
Huh. That
Weird.
sounds interesting, actually.
So it's not like they released a full roster. I can tell you that one of the other series coming out under the Wonder imprint is the Wonder Twins.
Yeah, I saw the image on that one. It looked pretty
Yeah,
cool.
me too.
Yeah, Jaina and Jace apparently are not only going to be on DC's Prime Earth, but they're also going to be going to high school. I don't think they're part of Young Justice.
Wait,
though.
wait a
This is
minute.
just their
What names
story.
did you give them?
Jaina was it? Oh, that's not Jaina and Jace. It was. God, I don't remember their names now. It's been so long.
I was
I've
gonna
tried
say,
to.
Jaina and Jason are Star Wars.
I know one of them started with a Z.
Xana. Jason Xana.
Jason Zana. Okay. Yeah, they're going to high school. I saw them with backpacks in front of a bunch of lockers doing a fist bump. Or transforming. I really don't know which.
Yeah, that was the image I saw. It looked pretty cool.
Did you see the image from Flash Year 1?
Oh my god, I totally screwed up the names too. It's Jaina and Zan. Oh my
I'll take that
God.
card back. Thank you.
For shame.
Yeah, just when I thought I had my shit together.
You even use the internet, dude. Come on.
Oh no, I had to use the internet because I was like, that doesn't sound right.
No, it was
Man,
also
I didn't see
announced
that.
that the Flash is getting the Year 1 treatment that Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman have had. The creative team is Joshua Williamson and Howard Porter. The first image off the book is actually kind of interesting because it shows Barry Allen putting on his shoes after it looks like he's burned through probably 50 pairs trying to do whatever it is he's trying to do. And he's wearing some very basic equipment. Blue jeans, knee guards, elbow pads, and a t-shirt with a Flash symbol on it. I sent you guys a link to the image that came out in Twitter for it. There's also another cover that's associated with it with somebody in a red hoodie. I'm guessing that's also Barry, who spray painted the Flash symbol into the side of a wall.
I think he's gonna need more protective padding.
He's going to need more shoes.
Yeah, that too.
Artistically, I do like what they're putting together here. Williamson, though, as a writer, I run hot and cold. There's times he really seems to dig into his characters and know where he's going, and then there's other times where it feels like he's spinning his wheels. And last up, when it comes to DC comic news, Joshua Williamson is also writing the upcoming Flash Annual in January. And that may be one to read for people who are into emotional stories. The Flash Annual will be where he deals with the death of Wally West.
Sore subject still.
Easy. Williamson did say, quote, "It's one of the saddest things I've ever had to write in my life. It's really highly emotional," unquote.
I hate the fact that they're trying to go the 9 yards with this.
Well, actually, Barry's going to talk to two different people to try to work through his grief in this case. He's going to talk to the recently returned Bart Allen, Impulse. And he's also going to talk to a former friend of his who has escaped from prison, August Hart.
Needs to talk to the writer and get their shit straight.
August Hart is the villain known as Godspeed in DC Comics.
Yeah, he's been trying to do the redemption thing.
Yeah, that's what I've understood. I haven't read any stories with him. Character designs are really cool. I just never caught up to the character.
Yeah, he was in the story arc before War of the Flashes. Yeah, he got out of prison. He's trying to do his thing, and now he's kind of on the run, so to speak.
A speedster on the run. Who knew?
Yeah.
Last up, we have general comic and convention news. This is where we talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions happening all around the world. As you heard, we talked a lot about conventions. I need to talk about creators for a few minutes here. First up, unfortunately, we have another creator death that happened in the past week. Longtime artist on the British anthology series 2000 AD, Carlos Ezquerra, passed away. He died due to complications from lung cancer at the age of 70.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Ezquerra had been working for a Spanish publisher, EC Comics, and this one is actually going to hit home for cult comics fans. Ezquerra is credited as the co-creator of Judge Dredd.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. He worked on a number of Dredd series, including Mega City 1 and the Judge Dredd anthology part of 2000 AD. He worked with John Wagner in the pages of 2000 AD number 2 in 1977 to help co-create the character. So, outside of 2000 AD, Ezquerra was also a collaborator with Garth Ennis. He helped create the 1996 DC series Bloody Mary and the 2000 Vertigo series Adventures of the Rifle Brigade. Ezquerra also helped illustrate 2 Preacher specials written by Garth Ennis, including the Saint of All Killers miniseries.
Oh yeah, I read that.
Yeah. This
That
man
was
was
brutal.
This man was born in Zaragoza, Spain on November 12th, 1947.
Whew.
So, that's a sad day, man. I'm sorry he's gone. Also, when it comes to creators, Mark Waid is being sued.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why?
Remember when I mentioned that we're going to have to talk about a segment of the comic book populace that doesn't like diversity?
Oh, those scumbags.
Well, one in particular. You remember the name Richard Meyer?
Yes, vaguely familiar.
Richard Meyer is one of the more vocal people that believes in Comicsgate-style conspiracies. Meyer believes that diversity is hurting comic books because they make some of his favorite characters look more boyish or mannish, as he puts it. He's one of the guys that was upset because he thought that female creators were purposefully lowering the bust size of Captain Marvel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also said they made her look more lesbianish. And we've had that discussion. I do not measure heroes by their ability to give me erections.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Richard Meyer, though, he claims that Mark Waid is personally responsible for his book of Jawbreakers that was going to be produced by or published by Antarctic Press from being pulled from shelves.
Ah, that guy.
Yes.
Fuck that guy.
He is suing Waid over what he claims is torturous interference with contract and defamation.
Oh, God. I saw the clips of his work. It's garbage.
Yeah. Now, the reason why he's suing Waid in particular was that after Meyer announced that he was publishing Jawbreakers with Antarctic Press, Mark Waid went to Facebook and posted that he had called the publisher to alert them of problematic behavior on Meyer's part. Specifically, Waid cited, quote, creators who are whose marketing strategy is to allegedly encourage their fans to threaten the employees of stores and or harass one-star review bomb stores that don't order their product, unquote.
Yeah.
Waid also...
A lot of stores were... I'm sorry, I may interject on this one, but I have a little sidebar. A lot of stores were already threatening to boycott this guy's work even before Waid got involved.
Yeah. In the statement and others that Meyer alleges... basically, Meyer alleges that because of Mark Waid did, people were bullied into dropping Jawbreakers to the point where Antarctic Press canceled the book. He also alleges, quote, that later that day, Wade spoke by telephone with one of the owners of Antarctic Press and convinced him that Antarctic Press should repudiate its contract with Meyer. Frightened for its very survival by Wade's threats and primarily because of his unwelcome interference, Antarctic Press caved to Wade's pressure, unquote. He's seeking damages in excess of $75,000 due to the dropping of his Jawbreaker series. He also claims defamation in that Wade, quote, intentionally published statements of fact to his followers and the general public. Meyer as a racist and serial harasser of minorities and as affiliated with white supremacists, unquote. Wade's lawyers have already responded to the suit, calling it frivolous, and I gotta say, it's kind of hard to believe that any single creator whose name is not Stan Lee can call a publisher and get them to drop a book based on their own say-so.
Well, Antarctic Press is I so weird. I gotta bring this up. Antarctic Press is actually a local thing. They're from my town.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. I read their publication of like Robotech comics back in the day.
Oh, yeah, but when it really comes down to it, as long as they've been around, I mean, they have been around since the late 80s, they are still a small print.
Yeah.
And Mark Waid does carry some weight.
He does. I just don't believe he carries the weight to have a book canceled by a publication he's not working for, like, ever.
I don't think he threatened them to make them cancel it. I think he just brought to light what Antarctic Press was already having trouble with when they printed that stupid pro-Trump My Hero Academia book.
I remember what you're talking about, but I didn't read it. It was one of those things that was in the middle of a story. I saw the pictures and went on.
It's total right-wing garbage, but we're not going to get political here.
Yeah. But
they are already having trouble with that. So they view this new book as, well, crap, more the same.
Well, the thing is, though, it's not like you have to go... The defamation part is the funniest of all, because it's not like you have to go far to find Meyer's own tweets about how he doesn't like diversity in comic books regardless of what these creators are outputting. He's made it very clear he doesn't think much of minorities in comic books, nor does he think much of women in comic books. So to say that Wade defamed him and is painting this portrait of him as his thing, look to the man's social media. He says it himself very prolifically.
He defamed himself.
Yeah. So I think the suit will go to a judge. I don't think it's going to get far past that phase. I don't think many judges are going to look at Meyer's social media and not throw this suit out.
Honestly, I was thinking if what he told his fans to do to comic book stores was actually true, I'm pretty sure there's some federal laws he just broke doing that.
It depends on whether or not the particular state he filed this in has any sort of harassment laws, cyber harassment laws. Some states have them, some don't.
Or incitement laws.
You know, I didn't bring this up because I'm looking to pick a political fight. I just found it interesting that Meyer did so many mental backflips to try to create this lawsuit. This would have taken some work to draw these lines.
And he's got a long long way to go to get that suit in his direction.
I don't think he's going to get anywhere with it. I think.
Oh no, I don't think so either. I don't think so either.
He's doing it for exposure because he's certainly not getting it through his own work.
No, this is just going to sell more of his self-published comic books to those people that believe these conspiracy theory type items.
Yeah.
So he's really just selling more copies. This is pretty much free advertising.
I guess who really likes him?
Oh, Van Sciver.
Yep.
Yeah, we discussed that. Meyer is a fan of Ethan Van Sciver, and Van Sciver is a fan of Myers.
Yeah.
IDW Comics is going to celebrate 20 years with an IDW 2020 event featuring the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Ghostbusters, and more characters in their publishing. It's going to be a weekly event that also includes Gem and the Holograms, My Little Pony, Star Trek, and more, with each issue being set 20 years into the property's potential future or past.
I'll pick up the Ghostbusters one of that. That sounds interesting. The rest I'll pass.
Yeah, the cover must be one of those future things, because I don't recognize anybody here, and whoever's driving the Ecto 4WD here, it looks like an armored vehicle.
Can you post that picture?
Yeah, give me just a sec.
Yeah.
I didn't have a chance to dig into this because news was coming fast and furious, so I really didn't know that the 2020 was going to involve all their properties in different... Timelines is not the right word. Time frames, I guess, would be the right word for it. So, as you can see, that is a big honkin' vehicle. It appears that the Star Trek 2021 is going to be 20 years before Jean-Luc Picard took command of the Enterprise D. This is back during his time in command of the Stargazer.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was in command of this. Was he in command of the Stargazer? I thought he was just a scientist.
No, he was. He wasn't in command. He was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Enterprise is not his first command.
Yeah, the cover image of Star Trek 2020 appears to have a very young Picard with hair, Beverly Crusher behind him, and I assume that's her husband. I think he I think he died on the Stargazer, didn't he?
I believe so.
That's
because he knew her husband. They talk about him a lot.
Yeah, they made it very clear during The Next Generation that Picard and Crusher's husband were pretty good friends before he passed.
And Crusher was wearing that collarless Wrath of Khan uniform, apparently, that they were wearing right around the Enterprise C era.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, wow, I was going to talk about the new Star Trek Picard storyline, but I guess we just did that, so frack.
Oh, hey, sidebar to that. Will Wheaton has expressed his interest to be on the Picard Star Trek show.
What, just be yelled at again?
I would only allow that if he came on with that full-on lumberjack beard he's been sporting recently.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I would be okay with that on any level.
Yeah, me too.
As long as he does say at some point, "Shut up, Wesley."
You know, you're not the first person to bring up that exact concern.
The only way I would accept somebody in the show yelling "Shut up, Wesley" is if Will Wheaton turned around and threw a tricorder at his head. According to the synopsis for Star Trek 2020, quote, 20 years before he took command of the USS Enterprise D, Jean-Luc Picard sat in the captain's chair of the USS Stargazer. Picard served with distinction aboard the Stargazer for many years on his way to becoming the most respected captain in Starfleet. But in this early mission, Picard shows us a vulnerable side as well as glimpses of the brilliant tactician he would become, unquote. And yeah, that is Jack Crusher behind him. It says in beneath the synopsis on the story at comicbook.com.
Nice.
Another character getting their own series with Dynamite Comics is Turok Dinosaur Hunter.
Oh, dear God.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
I've not heard that name in many years.
Neither have I. And the writer of this series is also kind of notable. It's Ron Mars.
Really?
Yeah, Ron Mars is the
Oh.
creator of Kyle Rayner, the fourth Earthbound DC Green Lantern.
He's also the Hal Jordan hater, so he can go die in a dumpster fire.
Mars told comicbook.com, quote, I wanted to build my Turok story by going back to the original version. Not so much in terms of the specifics, but in terms of the spirit. We're not imitating anything that's come before, but we're definitely trying to capture the feel of what made those stories cool. We have a Native American and his brother. We have a lost land inhabited by dinosaurs and other time-lost denizens. But this is not a specific Turok we've seen before because we're setting this in the 1880s, in the waning days of the Indian Wars in the Old West, unquote. It's an interesting concept. Most of the time, Turok Dinosaur Hunter is... You basically have a modern Native American with a lot of modern weaponry chasing dinosaurs. Turning it back to the 1880s does change the story rather significantly. And speaking of changing the story, Boom Studios has announced that on their new Buffy the Vampire Slayer comic book series, Joss Whedon is on board as part of the creative team on it.
Yeah, probably in a producer capacity. I'm really not thrilled with their new direction on that.
I think it's a bit more than that. He's actively working with the writer and artist on the series. That's Jordi Belair and Dan Mora specifically.
Yeah, they're just rebooting her, trying to update her for the new generation, which means that the continuity that Dark Horse has been building up for the past, 20 years?
Well,
is gone.
I wouldn't say it's gone. Technically, I think everything that was attached to it beforehand, including the TV show, will technically be gone now. They're just telling a new timeline. It's their new Kelvin verse of the Buffy mythos. You know what?
I have mixed feelings about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad
I'm with
thing.
you, Joe. Mixed feelings.
Sometimes an updating of a concept can really help. I mean, geez, Beast Wars transformed what Transformers could mean to people. And, several of the subsequent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle series are much better than the original one as far as cartoons go.
Yep.
I guess I'm sated by the fact that the new Buffy series is in the same continuity, so I guess I'll have that.
I look forward to the attempt. It's not like that. It's not like Whedon's been thrown out with the bathwater when they changed series here. He's working with it just like everybody else.
True, true. I probably would have had a much more polarizing opinion of it if it had happened.
Yeah, and I do wonder what the story would be like since they are taking the same basic characters from the TV show and retelling their story in the modern century and era.
Yeah, I wonder.
You know, it
Go
feels
ahead,
like
Joe. I'm sorry.
I just have, because I don't know, I have mixed feelings because why not just introduce a new Slayer, like the next Slayer,
they are.
and make her modern?
Well, they're doing that as well with a new TV show.
Yeah, that's what they're doing with the TV show.
I'm okay with that. However, trying to modernize some things that were so 90s. I mean, Cordelia, for example, she wouldn't really fit in, I don't think, with the modern era. She was a very 90s Valley girl
Yeah, very
when
much
you
so.
first meet her.
Well, that's not to say that they're taking everybody straight out of their decade and dropping them in. I consider it more like Riverdale, where the characters are getting an update in tone as well as timeline.
So she's
Yeah,
probably
but that complete.
she's probably the 90 equivalent of now. So
Yeah, she's probably a selfie girl.
Probably.
As a matter of
I don't
fact,
know.
while they were discussing the comic book series at New York Comic Con, several people booed, and they were talked down by David Boreanaz of all people.
Oh, nice.
Well, what were they discussing when they got booed? The comic or the show?
He was talking about the comic book reboot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and he was on stage, and people started booing. And his response was, quote, "Everybody wants old. They want to go back," which I can understand. You want to see us back in these roles. It's great. It's cool. But things move on. Stories evolve. Times change. I think it's a really great opportunity for a reboot like this to show where we are with society now. What you can do with technology. How can you explore those relationships with the same kind of metaphors? I'm all for it. I think it's fantastic. Good for them. I hope that it becomes huge and successful and does what it does. Unquote.
They can never replace him as Angel. I'm just saying that right now.
I kind of think they have to, judging by the gray hairs coming out of his chin and head.
Yeah. Sigh.
You know, vampires age rather rapidly in the Buffyverse, apparently.
Well, that's why Spike couldn't really come back after a while.
Yeah. Well, that and the embarrassment of playing, Piccolo in the Dragon Ball movie, so... I don't know.
I think that with some makeup he could still pull it off, because I've seen video of him just recently talking about the prospect of it, and he is looking very healthy. I'm fairly certain that with just the slightest amount of face makeup he could pull it off.
Yeah, and then they could also explain it like, oh, he had a soul and he was humanized for a while, so the aging caught up with him. I'm sure somebody could figure something out.
Exactly. You know, he's had a rough decade.
Well,
So he got a soul, went on a bender, you know.
As you do.
Well, a new comic book series has been announced at New York Comic Con, or miniseries actually, and it's going to be focused on Darth Vader in the Star Wars universe. It's being written by Chuck Wendig, and they're calling it Shadow of Vader. Each issue of the Marvel miniseries will follow a different character or group, including for one issue the Acolytes of the Beyond, another, which is a weird group of dark-side cultists who made a brief appearance in Wendig's Aftermath series, and reflect how encounters with the Dark Lord of the Sith affected their lives.
Interesting.
This is in addition to several novels that are being released that are in the Star Wars universe, including Star Wars Alphabet Squadron. It's going to be set in the early days of the New Republic era after Return of the Jedi, as 5 pilots form a group to hunt down rogue Imperials.
Did you say Alphabet Squadron or Alpha Squadron?
They call it, the book is called Star Wars Alphabet Squadron.
Okay. I thought I misheard you for a second.
Okay. I may have misspoke. It's happened before. And the other novel that was announced was by Alex Zhang, and it's called Master and Apprentice. It's going to explore the relationship between Qui-Gon Jinn and young Ben Kenobi.
Master and servant. Sorry, had a Depeche Mode moment. Moving on.
Okay. Not quite sure where that's going, but whatever. Also, with the recent issue of Poe Dameron number 31 in Marvel Comics, they finally showed what happened to a few characters that were missing during The Last Jedi.
Oh.
Yeah, do you guys know who Black Squadron is in the latest movies?
Yeah, wasn't
Yes.
that the X-wings, right?
Those were the pilots around Poe Dameron in The Force Awakens, including Greg Grunberg from Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out the reason why they were missing was during the after the run on the Star Killer, but before the rebels had to abandon base. Most of Black Squadron was sent on a special mission, and they were just unavailable. After the events of The Last Jedi, according to this comic book, the remnants of the Resistance received a distress call from Black Squadron. They needed an extract. But Leia could not spare the ships or the personnel to rescue 3 or 4 pilots. But Poe Dameron convinced her to let him take a ship and just try to rescue the pilots, because not only do they need ships at this point, they need personnel.
Mm-hmm.
So he did manage to take a ship and rescue at least 2 or 3 of them. So if you're wondering why those characters weren't around to help defend what was left of the fleet, that's why.
That was a good scene with the X-wings up in the sky doing ground combat on the troops below.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that also leads to the idea that maybe these characters may appear in the next film.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people assume that they were dead. When either the base was evacuated or when the whole fleet was being picked off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I can really expand on it any more than you guys have. DC has also announced that they're teaming up with Rooster Teeth to create comic books based on Rooster Teeth series Genlock and Ruby.
Not familiar with it.
They're both animated series. Genlock has not come out yet. It's coming out soon on Rooster Teeth's website. Ruby has been out for about 4 seasons. It's a very anime-inspired CG series. It used to be done by...
Monty Ohm.
Thank you, Monty Ohm, before he died after the end of Season 2. Actually, the 6th season of Ruby is coming out soon. Jesus Christ. Both comic books are going to appear... Actually, no. I'm sorry. Ruby Volume 6 is going to appear October 27th on Rooster Teeth. Genlock's debuting January 2019. Both of the comic book series will be released in 2019, but there's no specific date of release yet. Also announced is coming out in January 2019 is Fight Club 3.
Yep.
Yeah. The original Fight Club, of course, was a cult classic film that came out in the late 90s. There was a comic book continuation, Fight Club 2, that came out in 2015. 2019 is going to see the continuation of that story still with Fight Club 3. The author of the original novel of Fight Club from 1996, Chuck Palahniuk, worked on both comic book continuations. So these are...
Does it have the original characters or new ones?
Oh, it's the same characters. These are the official canon continuation of the Fight Club story.
Interesting.
What happened in Fight Club 2?
I didn't read it, frankly. I enjoyed the Fight Club movie for what it was. I can't say I was personally interested in returning to that universe. Speaking of a return, and the last bit of comic book news I have for this week is that Archie Comics is unveiling another Supernatural Riverdale series.
Which one?
Well, we already have Afterlife with Archie, where Archie's a zombie. The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, about the teenage witch, which is more occult than most people remember.
Yep.
Jughead the Hunger, where he's a werewolf. And Vampironica, if you can't guess what Veronica's become as a result of that title, I cannot help you. They've announced 2 new series. The first one is going to detail the new story of the Blossoms twins. This one is called Blossoms 666. In this one, both Cheryl Blossom and her twin brother, I think it's Jason? Yes, it is Jason.
Maybe it's like Zan and Jaina.
No, it is Jason. The thing is, though, what they know is that one of them is the Antichrist, but they don't know which one.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So apparently the 2 of them want the position, but they know there can be only one.
Well, you know what they need to do? Get somebody to look in their hair.
Or somebody to get them hair that doesn't look like a Twilight extra.
Uh-oh. Joanna hasn't seen one of the Antichrist movies. The Omen.
Probably haven't seen any of them. No, I haven't.
It's
Omen, not up my alley.
Yeah, okay. There was Omen, Damien Omen 2, and a third one was called The Final Conflict. And in the second movie, Damien becomes self-aware that he is the Antichrist when he finally discovers the 666 birthmark in his hairline after going through his hair.
Why do we get the feeling we've already discussed this much longer than she cares to?
Is that what my silence tells you?
That's what it tells me pretty loudly, actually.
You're very intuitive.
Well, been married 13 years. Had to stay alive somehow. Blossom 666 is supposed to come out in 2019 in addition to the other Archie Supernatural series. And you should be able to guess what the story is based on the title. Jughead the Hunger versus Vampironica. It's going to be written by Frank Thierry, illustrated by Pat and Tim Kennedy. Originally, Jughead the Hunger and Vampironica each take place in their own alternative version of the Archie universe, but this series is going to bring the two together, where werewolves and vampires are not only going to meet for the first time, they're going to throw down.
Don't they always? Can't
Typically.
they just get along?
I've seen the Underworld movies, and yes, that's typically the way it goes.
You're asking for way too much, Joe.
Yes, I am, actually.
Before we get into supernatural race relations here, why don't we get through the story of the week? And that is Raven, Daughter of Darkness by DC Comics. We decided to read the first 6 issues of this series, and it is the story of the longtime Teen Titan and Titan as she tries to acclimate herself to the normal world by living with her aunt and uncle and their kids in, was it San Francisco?
Yes.
So. All right. Just want to make sure I had that correctly. It's written by Saida Temofonte. He's the letterer. The writer is Marv Wolfman. The artist is Pop Mon. And the colors are done by Lovern Kinzierski. I think I pronounced that correctly.
Wow, Marv Wolfman. He created the new Teen Titans way back in the 80s.
Yep.
Yeah, I took a pause when I saw that.
Did you pause and pray, or were you paused and happy?
I was paused like, holy crap. I know. It's like, I don't know many names associated with comics, whether writing, arts, whatever, but, I know Marv Wolfman.
He's been around a long time.
Yeah, by reputation.
Yeah,
man, the stuff he wrote helped me learn how to read, just to put that in perspective.
Oh, that explains your diction.
Oh, wow.
Faceless joke.
This is obviously not a first moment type book. In other words, it's not Raven's beginning of her living with her extended family, because in issue 1, she already has a group of teenage friends who are not wearing superhero masks. So it's already very different from the norm.
Yeah. Took me a while to recognize that.
Yeah, I thought that they were hanging out outside of their superhero, and I was trying to figure out who they were, and I'm like, nope, that's not anyone I recognize.
Well,
I thought so, but
it doesn't help the first time you see them. They're just given one-word names. Dude, Ant, Terry, Archer, Madison. This sounds like a superhero crew.
right.
It does.
When I read Dude, I thought, okay, we're being set up for a joke here.
I'm hoping Dude is not the name he's born with, but I've heard worse. It's kind of hard to talk about the bones of the story at the very beginning here, because it is a bit of world building for about the first 10 pages. You're introduced to, well, for people who don't know, you're introduced to a character named Baron Winters, who apparently is, I don't know, I guess you could say the arbiter of evil in this universe. He's not trying to take over, he's just trying to make sure that evil maintains its end of the balance with good in this one.
Well, he is actually from DC's Night Force.
I understood that much when he kept saying the words Night Force very emphatically during issues 5 and 6 here.
Yeah, it was kind of his team way back in the day. And fun fact, Night Force first appeared in New Teen Titans.
Oh, that's the tie together.
So,
and was created by Marv Wolfman.
Ah, yeah, he must be very familiar with this then.
I did get the feeling from reading this series that Marv Wolfman likes to play in his sandbox and not far outside of it.
Everyone has a comfort zone.
Yeah, they do. And with that said, it does seem like he kind of strayed off from his normal writing style. Either that, or he's hold true to the stuff that he was writing back in '82, because this felt like a young adult novel.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
It felt geared toward teenage girls.
That comes with some positives and negatives here, but we can get to that after we get through some more of the story.
Okay.
Around page 10 is when we start to get our first glimpse as to what one of the potential threats is in this series. with a young girl running through the forest being chased by people in SUVs and Jeeps with automatic weapons, which is generally how every Schwarzenegger film begins. And when they finally start to track this individual down is when strange things happen in the forest, yet these people are unusually well equipped, because whoever this young lady is, she's projecting illusions to throw them off her trail, but the goggles they have on their helmets automatically cut through these illusions.
Yeah, they're pretty high tech.
Or is this a low-tech method of blocking the visual reception? I don't know.
I don't know. Considering the blocking helmet they shoved on her head to shut down her powers, I'm going with both high-tech and a little too prepared for the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they definitely understood their target when they were rolling after it. And Raven sensed this from afar and sent her soul self, the black miasma you often see in different versions to deal with it. Well, oh, in this case, it's also her, like, within her soul self. I've always found that a little bit hard to define.
What's that?
The
What
soul
that shape
self.
is?
Not the soul self itself. I understand that this is basically the power of her soul, but it has so many different abilities associated with it. It's a little hard to pull apart what it does and doesn't do.
It's one of those catch-alls. It does what it's supposed to do, and doesn't when it comes time to create tension.
Right, like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
It was actually here on page 13 where I found one detail that started to bother me throughout this series when it comes to Raven's current costume.
What's that?
The overall design of it I'm fine with, but every time I look at the ends of her gloves, I keep thinking, did she really have to paint her nails before she put these on or something? The red claws at the end of the gloves are they're eye-catching.
Huh.
Maybe just tips that she put on the gloves.
I kind of hope so.
Like
I would
talons.
I would hate to think she put on Dragon Lady press-on nails every time she gets into costume.
No, it looks like just part of the glove.
The rules of magical
Sailor Moon.
girls.
Yeah, and unfortunately in the first issue, we kind of got into something I was hoping this series would avoid as far as its first villain, when Trigon, the Spectre of Trigon, reared his head very early here, Raven's demonic father.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I know the two are tied together, they're father and daughter. It's almost inescapable that he comes up. I was just hoping that in a series that had such low numbering, he wasn't going to be the first thing we encountered in this series.
Or maybe they encountered him early so that he wouldn't drag the rest of the series down.
I don't know. I think that cuts both ways. You know, a lot of things I look for in comic books when I read them is that it's not just the familiarity of characters I know, but it's also that they're brought into circumstances that make the story new and fresh. And when Trigon is brought around again, after years of dealing with Teen Titans comics and cartoon series, I'm over it.
See, I never dealt with the Teen Titans cartoon series. I read a few of the comics, but this is one of the reasons I wanted to read this one, because it seemed for a little bit older age group, not the Teen Titans cartoon series. It seemed to maybe pull a little bit more of her personality, not just have her as part of a team.
Yeah. I mean, the writing in it was fine. The dialogue was pretty distinct. The fact that the dialogue bubbles for Raven kept wavering like they were, it almost felt like she was putting on a voice every time she said anything. That, or like her voice was somehow reverberating or hollow whenever she spoke with people. I would have thought that'd been more off-putting in her day-to-day dealings with individuals.
Well, she usually had a pretty flat voice. I think anytime I saw snippets of the show, it was kind of distinct and low.
Yeah, but to me that wasn't a flat voice. That was like a wavering voice. Whenever that kind of bubble is put up, it's either somebody... Yeah, whenever I see a bubble like that, it's usually someone either mortally wounded or speaking through massive amounts of power that's distorting their voice.
That's fair.
I remember... sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna share a Trigon moment. When I was talking about the fact that I learned how to reading Titans, I wasn't exaggerating. I remember one image in a very early Titans comic that just spooked me, because I was really young and I wasn't really exposed to certain levels of violence and stuff like that. Yeah, I was sheltered, whatever. And there's one scene where Trigon is talking to his worshippers and he's doing his thing, and I don't know what the scene or why it happened, but one of the worshippers had a child with her.
Okay.
And Trigon just disintegrates her right in front of the mom. And
Yeesh.
Exactly. And I remember reading this and going, "Jeez!" It spooked me for the longest time. And while we were talking, I actually found that frame and I tossed it into Skype there for you.
Okay. It wasn't until late in the first issue that Raven caught up with Azure, the character that had been running and casting illusions in the early part, and I must say the reveal of her face was very surprising. Or
Yeah.
or lack thereof.
Well, if you paid attention to the title of the issue, which I missed.
Well, I didn't read it myself. I just got into the story. But I mean, the fact that Azure has no facial expressions other than two tremendously large, almost anime-like eyes.
Yeah, they're super huge.
Yeah. Well, the title of the story is called "The Girl with the Anime Eyes."
Great.
In the title.
Great.
I didn't even look at that.
I didn't need that. I was a little bit confused in future issues because when I looked at Azure's profile, whenever it was drawn by the artist, there were several points where it almost looked like she should have facial bones of some sort, but there's just no face to have these bones behind.
Yeah.
So I was always kind of thrown off by the idea that the artist just got used to drawing a human profile, but I think he mistakenly used a human profile on this particular character. Yeah, Azure is a high-level illusion caster, and she started to really harass Raven without her knowing it, really. How long was she in that house before no one figured out she was there?
One can only know. Or
It
guess.
was a
Or-
while.
Yeah, a while.
She has to be somewhat psionic, too, because she keeps pulling very personal images out of people's face or out of people's minds to project to them.
Danny Moonstar, anyone?
True. And another question. Throughout these 6 issues, Baron Winters was talking to this pet leopard in his house that he kept calling Merlin. Is this actually the Merlin from history?
I
was
don't...
trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember there being a Merlin in the old Night Force, but then again, I haven't read Night Force in, 2 decades?
Well, I mean, I only asked because in the first couple issues, it seemed like he was talking to somebody that couldn't answer back. I assumed he was just, speaking mentally or mystically with the wizard Merlin, but by about issue 3, I figured out that Merlin is this leopard he's spending time with. So are the avatars of good and evil standing in the same room, yet one of them, for some reason, is a giant cat?
Yeah, looking him up, Merlin the Leopard. He's an adult spotted leopard and a loyal pet of the enigmatic Baron Winter. According to Winters, Merlin was given to him as a gift by the wizard Merlin, for which he is named. Merlin wears a golden spiked collar and is fiercely loyal. He's always present by his side and always obeys his commands.
Okay, so that answers a couple of questions, but still, I was still kind of confused why he's so concerned with the balance of good and evil if he's doing all this by himself. It always sounded like he was doing this with another party.
Right.
It seems to me like the way they redid it is that Merlin embodies the balance. He's the chaos, and Merlin is more than likely the order. I picked up on it, within the second frame that he was talking to Merlin, because Merlin kept making noises.
Okay. Yeah, the other reason why I asked is because I wasn't aware until after I read the first issue that Dr. Fate in the current version of the DC Universe is basically giving the world the middle finger and he's not working with any of them right now.
Huh.
Yeah, I think everybody else is having to pick up the scraps, and I don't know where that puts the Phantom Stranger.
And neither do I.
Because, this is really his shtick.
Yeah. Raven re-encounters Azure later on when the soldiers that she was chasing before, she figured out that they were from a company called Tomorrow Tech.
I recognize that name immediately.
I recognize the name, but I didn't see any indication that Tio Moro is a part of it.
Yeah.
But, man, when Azure died late in the second issue and her pupils and irises contracted, I know that's supposed to be a sad moment, but I almost had to laugh just staring at it.
I don't know, it kind of
kinda
horrified
creepy.
me.
Yeah, it kind of horrified me too.
I looked at that and thought she was super high. Somehow I thought she got cocaine into her frontal membrane or something.
I guess my humor button wasn't being pressed during the death scene.
And she kept referring to Raven as sister, which just added to the mystery and probably added to the likelihood that Trigon was involved in some capacity here.
Mm-hmm.
Was it just me, or these 6 issues, reading them back to back, it always seemed like when an issue ended, the next issue didn't pick up at that point. It always seemed to pick up somewhere else, somehow.
Yeah, it seemed like a different chapter, not a continuation of that issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that was... It almost felt it was intentional.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was an intentional or an editorial oversight. I was just kind of surprised that it always felt like where we picked up is not where we ended. It always felt like there was some kind of weird jump that I missed somehow.
I've seen this before with comics. I can say for DC, I can't say how much for Marvel.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like
I'm used to this.
Yeah, it's like the end of issue 2 here. Raven is attacked by a tentacle, which is even more anime than Giant Eyes, frankly, but still. But when we pick up the 3rd issue, she's not being attacked by a tentacle. She's being attacked by someone whose powers show up in the form of, like, smoke tendrils.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So there's
So maybe it was also some sort of misguidance.
I think that's part of it. It just always feels like there's just some kind of weird disconnect between the issues. Like, in issue 3 here, Raven is climbing out of the fireplace of Baron Winters, which is how he monitors people somehow. And I went through most of the issue with Raven lost in 1906 San Francisco. That was not the most unusual thing to me. It was like, at the end of that issue, Baron Winters extinguishes the flames so that Raven cannot come back through them. But at the beginning of issue 4, fireplace is fully lit and just running hot there.
Yeah, I was... that actually caught my attention, too. I actually had to back up to make sure I had the comics in the right order.
So did I. There were times between every issue I had to go back and say, did I read that? Yes, I read that. How did we get here?
Yeah.
Right. I noticed that too, but I was wondering if there were multiple fireplaces to watch multiple areas of the world, maybe.
Or
they didn't say that there was. They didn't say there wasn't.
Or it's just something he can't just. He has no full control. He doesn't have full control over. I think you can explain that toward the latter end of our read.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that in issue 3, he extinguished it. At the beginning of issue 4, it's lit again. And, yeah, I wonder if there was another room, but he was always in the same library when he's staring into this fireplace. Mm-hmm. But in issue, I think it was 5, he mentioned that he extinguished the flame, so he didn't know how other people were using it. So it bounces back and forth there.
Yeah, it looks like an editorial oversight.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that when Raven comes in, she goes, hey, see that place over there? I'm going to throw you in it. Talk about the fireplace that was connected to, like, 1909 or something like that?
1906, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I'm thinking there's multiple fireplaces, maybe in the same room, maybe in different rooms that look similar, but they never address that. So I wasn't the only one confused on that. Good.
No,
Man's got a lot of flu powder.
Yeah, there was definitely a couple writing, I wouldn't even call it mistakes. There were just hiccups that didn't really add to the flow of this particular series.
One thing I could think of is that where he resides in is a kind of an nth dimension space where it just repeats the same structure or room repeatedly, but they're all different. Again, I'm just trying to think, rationalize this.
When Raven's there, she said it feels like she's been running down the hall for hours. So it could be kind of like one of those non-temporal space dimensions, the place between places.
There's got to be something else going on, though, because this place has a physical address. In issue 5, you see the front of Wintersgate Manor.
Mm-hmm.
So this place does exist somewhere.
But maybe through the door is like a pocket dimension.
I don't know.
Like it has a location. I don't know.
It was one of those things I had some general difficulty with in reading the 6 issues. There are just certain things throughout that are ill-defined, from Raven's powers to how the manor potentially works to how just certain magical devices in these 6 issues worked.
Mm-hmm.
It was those. I know sometimes I nitpick a little heavily, but those disconnects bother somebody who's OCD, which is what I am. God, the story here it meanders a little bit in the 3rd and 4th issue. In the 5th issue is where you find out that there is a number of these daughters of Trigon, for lack of a better term. The Tomorrow Tech Corporation, it turns out their entire purpose is to strengthen the human genome so that Trigon can mate with humans and create more daughters like Raven. But somehow all of the attempts turn out to have more girls with large eyes and no faces with varying powers.
Mm-hmm.
And
or just monsters, like they say.
Yeah, the monsters you didn't see a whole lot of. These weird sisters, the faceless sisters, were the ones you saw the most of.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I understand that they all have Trigon's DNA. I was just trying to figure out how so many of them turned out like that, other than perhaps the convenience of an artist. It's got to be wonderful to draw so many disposable characters that have no features you have to follow.
Truth.
And it was another case where a lot of their powers were simply put in exposition, but they weren't very well defined. You know, Violet, power to merge with others. Silver, ice vision. Gold, DNA tracker. Verdant, sleep vision. I spent a while thinking about sleep vision.
Yeah.
Sleepwalker stuff.
Both to his strength and detriment, the last couple issues basically focused around Raven's fight with her father and how Trigon was trying to burst into this dimension. And it was another case where, in my mind anyway, where the powers were not quite matching up from panel to panel. Trigon and his weird skeletal energy hands, which somehow in certain panels came out of his palms and other panels replaced his palms.
Yeah, that was odd.
Yeah.
Odd choice artistically.
I understood it artistically. It was just not consistent from page to page. It created a couple more questions.
Was there a guest artist brought in, or was it the same Marisol 6 issues?
As far as I can see, the art was pretty consistent. It appeared to be the same person, Pop Mon, all the way through.
No, then that's not good.
I'd say that's more of an editorial problem. It's editorial's job to pick up on incongruities like that.
I think that's strike 2 for editorial on this book.
Raven supposedly was dying in issue 5, and that was fixed in issue 6 in a way I'm still not very clear about, when one of her sisters, the one who can merge with people, merged with her and somehow took the grievous injury to her soul in her stead. Even though
that wasn't explained at all.
Yeah, I mean,
and not to any satisfaction.
If she was hit with an energy bolt, I could understand soul damage, but that looked like an impaling.
Right.
And I'm kind of curious as how did Raven and her mom suddenly get strapped down in chairs?
They willingly sat down and let them strap him in. I thought that was weird.
I thought that was really weird.
Yeah, they were captured. They thought they didn't have a choice, and the guards just kind of strapped him down early in issue 5. They didn't put
up much.
Were
armed.
I thought they actually came in volunteer.
Well, maybe not, I'm not sure if they were captured or volunteer, but Raven was more than capable of just getting them out, but she just played along to find the answers. But she got the answers and way before they strapped her down. So I was like, why continue this?
I don't know.
Because they had a gun trained on her mom.
Yeah, she made it clear in the dialogue she could have broken herself out. I don't know if she could have broken herself and her mother out without suffering a casualty or two. But she did just seem weirdly compliant, walking from the trap room into the laboratory and then sitting down in the chair to get strapped into it without making a move.
Yeah.
There were some very interesting writing choices in here, but unfortunately it came down to Trigon versus Raven, who merged with all of her other sisters who sacrificed their lives and power so that she can shove Trigon back out of this universe. And I guess I was kind of sad by that decision, not necessarily emotionally, but just that there was all these other characters that were introduced within a course of a couple issues. They were all pretty much removed from the series all of a sudden.
Right.
I didn't have time to get emotionally invested in any of these characters who sacrificed themselves to stop Trigon.
Yeah.
And they were all such a mystery as to how they work or what their lives were potentially like before. I just have nothing to really care about that they sacrificed themselves in such a way.
I wish they would have. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean I'm pretty much going to echo what you said. I mean, they were kind of just created to die.
Yeah, I wish they would have fleshed them out a little bit. Maybe had Raven maybe in a holding cell next to them, get to know them. I don't know. Because they're her half-sisters, they're essentially experiments.
Mm-hmm.
The whole clones of them kind of reminded me of Laura Kinney's kind of origins in a way.
But they weren't clones, as far as I understood. They were all actual like
Gen-
birth
well,
children.
well, they're genetically engineered for a particular
It
purpose.
was a
It
selective breeding is different from clones.
yeah, this is more
Hmm.
eugenics than cloning.
I
Yeah.
guess.
Um,
Well, still, the idea she has a bunch of test tube sisters. This kind of brought that familiarity to me.
it just felt like there could have been a story there of some sort, whether it be the family that's scattered to the four winds, or even if a new nemesis comes out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that storytelling potential was unfortunately lost. And the conversation that Raven had with Baron Winters after everything was settled, that caused me to scratch my head a little bit too. Because in the course of 3 panels, he mentions Night Force twice, like she'd never heard the words before, even though he kept saying Night Force during their conversation. He started to really beat that in. I almost felt like
Seems
John
very
Oliver.
yeah, he felt very insistent on it.
I almost expected John Oliver to burst in and just say, "Stop trying to make Night Force a thing. It's not going to happen."
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, the only real resolution that came out of from this 6 issues was Raven starting to re-engage her biological mother again.
I felt that was a bit rushed.
It was. There's a lot of questions there, and I wouldn't say that they're all chummy happy. You know, it's definitely not the Brady Bunch, but that door was opened so quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
So I know I kind of sped through it there, but a lot of the artwork and storytelling in Raven has to do with either mystical gimmicks that it's very hard for me to define because I don't fully understand them, or a lot of what happens is extremely visual and it's not something I can lay out in simple words. I don't know, you guys agree, disagree? That's just how I felt about it.
I like the artwork. It was visually descriptive of what was going on. I did like how some of the panels were just larger than life. The kind of mystic parts of it were really detailed, like her spirit self. I thought was cool. The outline of the raven, the way it flies, the way it moves, its constant outline was neat. The several sisters, as they're bonding to her, it was like just this rainbow of all this color and all these shapes, flying at her. It was a pretty cool. And it was, I think, consistent artwork, except for the little hand thing. I think it was pretty consistent artwork the whole way through.
All right, so should we go ahead and wrap this up then?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, Jesse, you're up first.
All right. Overall, I thought it was okay, so I could hand this off to any teen and have them read it, let them enjoy it for what it's worth. But I didn't have as much problem with the magical aspects of it because I just dismissed a lot of it because I just do not care. But my only real point of contention, or maybe major nitpick, is Barry Winter's speech pattern kind of changed in the latter half of this read. And that kind of bothered me a bit.
Okay. What would you give it as... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. As for a rating, I'll probably give it a 6.
Okay. Casey, yours.
I thought the art was consistent, and it didn't distract me, and the hand thing slipped right by me, so I didn't even catch that. Yeah, I mean, actually, it had one small thing is the lettering changed shape in the first issue. It went from normal to like really small. I had to enlarge the frame just to see what she was talking about. Other than that, it really did feel like Wolfman was trying to aim this towards a young adult audience, and I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that him trying to aim it towards specifically, if I'm going to put my finger directly on it, a teenage girl audience. And I can understand that because Raven obviously does appeal to girls ever since the Teen Titans show came out. The writing seemed okay to me. Obviously, you got a lot of valid points about the about the enemies, and Trigon coming in a little early. I can understand that, but I guess they need something to fuel what the main villain was, and the main villain really is just all about those girls. And Wolfman definitely pulled from his environment. You know, he created Raven, he created Trigon, he created Baron Winters, he created everybody that was in this.
Mm-hmm.
So he took his familiar elements and he kind of took it into unfamiliar territory, which I thought was, I guess that's kind of cool. It wasn't extraordinary, but it didn't suck. I didn't hate reading it.
Okay.
I didn't fall asleep. That's a good thing. So I guess I'd give it a 7.
All right. Joanna, you want me to go before you, or which?
I'll go. That's fine, and you could wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay, so I realized that, yes, a lot of the things were rushed, but if it's only going to be a 12-issue miniseries, that may be why they didn't take their time and use a little bit of exposition to explain some things. But I still felt like defeating this big bad was too easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they wrapped it up by 6 out of 12. So it kind of leaves me feeling, well, where are they going with the rest of the series? You know, what's going to be the big bad? You know, if that was it, you kind of finished early. If it's going to be more centered on some of her other struggles, that makes a little more sense. But I think it's kind of going to be downhill once you defeat, well, not even defeat, you just got vanquished.
Yeah.
I liked the artwork. I liked the writing. I liked the pacing of it. The kind of more mature Raven on her own, not being the hero, not being part of the Titans, but just kind of trying to fit in as a teenager, as, you know, somebody trying to find her way in the world as it is. I thought it was a good story. I would have liked to see a little bit more of her interaction, you know, outside of the supernatural. You know, I wanted to maybe see her a little more humanized. She does have that internal dialogue going on, but I kind of wanted to see who she is as herself, not as the daughter of darkness, not as Raven the Teen Titan, but as herself.
So you want Rachel Roth the comic?
Right. Well, I want to, you know, get to know her as a person, not just, oh, she's got this power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because a lot of comics gloss over who they are as a person and just focus on their abilities or they're part of a team, but they just don't focus on the personality. Who are they? You know, underneath the power, underneath the team, you know.
Yeah.
I feel strongly about that because a lot of teams get glossed over. Like, you know, I have issues with the Justice League for several reasons, but we won't get into that. I liked it, though. I would give it a 7.5.
Okay. As you guys heard earlier in the review, my overactive mind picked out a few things that I just kind of had trouble with. I thought that the other Daughters of Trigon, for characters that were barely human, had strangely human features. I thought Raven's costume had a couple of strange quirks that drew my attention, and I don't know how much more we can beat to death the horse about Trigon's mystery hands and how exactly they worked. Jesse was right. Baron Winter's tone changed strangely in the second half of these 6 issues. And, you know, I felt like, I'm not going to say Wolfman or Popmon dropped the ball, but I do think that whoever was editing this book was not paying attention enough. They really could have helped hone this thing down and tell a good story. But Joanna also had a point that maybe they were truncated because of storytelling. But you had a book that encountered Raven as a teenager, Raven as a superhero, mystical threats, technical threats, or technological threats, and mysterious magical, if not mentors, let's just say harassers. And you had all these elements thrown into 6 issues, but no real significant time was spent with any one, including Raven as a potential conduit for her father to invade. And the introduction of the other Daughters of Trigon was so quick and how they were here and gone. I just feel like there was so much potential for 2 or 3 different types of story here, and none of them were unfortunately reached. So, as a long-term comic book reader and somebody who keeps trying to delve into DC, I just felt like this wasn't very well defined. I would have to give it. I want to say a 5, but I'm going to give it a 6 because as much as Mann's art gave me problems, I do think his art style was very good. It just, I think it's a case where unfortunately about the time he settles into this book, he's not going to be able to continue it. So that's my personal take. I do think it's been a while since we've read a Marvel book, and I have 3 in the hopper if you guys would like to check one out.
Okay.
Right.
What you got?
I have the first volume of the Mockingbird series by Chelsea Kane. I have.
I haven't read that.
I'm sorry?
I haven't read that.
I have the first volume of X-Men Red, also known as the Hate Machine in trade paperback. And I have the first 6 issues of the Domino series, which is still ongoing. They just finished their first story arc about a month ago.
I actually have read all of Domino. I read 2 issues of Red, and I liked Mockingbird's costume, which is all I took from her first thing. My voice, I'm voting for Red.
Okay, Joanna, Jesse?
I started the Domino series. I didn't finish it. I think I only read the first 2, so I'd definitely like to read that and review it. I mean, it's got an amazing writer. Or I'd be down for Mockingbird. Either or.
Okay, Jesse, you got a horse in this race?
Nah, I just go a la carte.
So that's basically one for everything.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. God, I don't quite know how to settle this. I could flip 2 coins and add the values.
Well, we did talk about Domino because we were talking about Gail Simone.
Very true, and that's one of Casey's favorite writers for sure. He keeps begging for her attention.
Absolutely,
I
and
enjoy
I've
her
read-
writing thoroughly.
I've read all the issues, so it's not like I'm going to be late for that one.
Okay.
Woohoo!
Well, Domino's fine by me. Joanna gets her way. She's so happy. All right. So next week it'll be Domino 1 through 6. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll do our best to get the change out of the wishing well next week, but man, Disney is really protected around that castle. Thank you very much. Have a great one. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And Casey.
And just.
Take care, everybody.